Hey guys, welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. I'm a dual UK and American citizen, and today I am telling you the 7 things British people need to know before you visit the US. Okay, so today's video was brought about because I always talk about life in the UK, and I thought it would be interesting to talk about the US for visitors. What might British people not expect or not know about visiting the US, especially if you've never been before? Okay, so the first thing, just to jump right into it, is tipping culture. Now, whether you agree with it or whether you don't, tipping is a huge part of American culture that a lot of British people are not accustomed to because the tipping culture here is very different. So let's keep it simple and talk about tipping in restaurants. If you are going to a sit-down meal where you have a waiter or waitress helping you throughout the meal, a typical tip is really around 20%. 15% would be for like mediocre service, 20% is standard, and some people even go to 25% if they feel the service was excellent. Now, unlike the UK, where you would really only tip voluntarily in a restaurant if you thought that the service was exceptional, in the US, this is not the case. It is expected that you tip your server, and like I said, if you have a bad experience, it's still really uncommon and frowned upon to leave absolutely no tip. Again, I know this doesn't make sense with British tipping culture, but this is American tipping culture. The reasoning behind this is that while it might be illegal in some states to not pay your waiter or waitress as an employer a living wage or a minimum wage, this is often not the case. So they are relying on tips in order to make their income. So it's one of those situations where, again, you can leave your comments on tipping and tipping culture down below. I'd love to hear them. But when you're in a different country following their customs and culture, just know that when you go to the States, 20% when you go to a sit-down restaurant is really the average kind of expected tip. Okay, the second thing to keep in mind is that in the US, there are more Spanish speakers than the entire country of Spain. This is a true fact. So especially if you're visiting states like Florida, Texas, California, you are going to experience tons of Hispanic influence, names of cities, Los Angeles, Santa Ana, Santa Rosa, California is full of them. And especially the further south you go in Florida, you're going to encounter more Spanish speakers. I feel like a lot of British people are not necessarily expecting this when they go to the US. And like I said, there are more Spanish speakers in the US than in Spain itself. And also it is the second most commonly spoken language in the US. Now that brings me to the sponsor of today's video, Busuu. Busuu is a language learning platform that combines bite-sized, on-demand lessons along with group lessons in real time to help you master one of the 14 languages they offer. I've been trying out a lot of language learning platforms recently, and what I really love about Busuu is this combination of styles so that you don't have to choose between the classes that you can do on your own and the live group classes. I actually used to be a relatively decent Spanish speaker. My mom's side of the family has a strong Hispanic heritage, leading directly back to Mexico. And I've been using Busuu to try and brush up on my Spanish skills so that when I go back to the US and Florida in particular, I can hold conversations more easily with people who might speak Spanish more fluently than they speak English. As you know, if you've watched my more recent videos, my schedule has gotten a lot busier recently. And what I love about Busuu is they really keep the on-demand lessons very bite-sized and achievable. You can also set up your own study plan, so it will help you figure out what language goals you can accomplish with the time you have. So it's not overwhelming. If you're interested in learning a language, check out Busuu in the links below. You can sign up and start learning for free and try out the Busuu premium trial for 7 days. Now let's get back to the video. Okay, the third thing that British people need to know before visiting the US is that if you go into a retail store, you might be approached by people offering to help you find something. I find that the customer service in the US is typically top-notch, but something that might be slightly uncomfortable if you're not used to it is going into a store and the employees are very attentive to what you need, what you're looking for. I find in the UK, you'll mostly be left alone. But in the US, don't be don't be concerned if you're approached by maybe multiple employees in a shopping trip, seeing if they can help you find anything. This is just part of American culture when it comes to retail. Now, the next thing to keep in mind, and this has to do more with Americans themselves, is that Americans are very typically friendly, and they want to get to know you in a much deeper way than a stranger might in the UK. So you might be talking to somebody in the checkout line at a grocery store in the US. They'll definitely say something to you if they hear your accent, particularly if you're in a place where foreign visitors are not as common, but people might ask questions of like what you do, your kids, your family, your pets, your childhood, your life story. And this is just the American way. Here in the UK, I've noticed that it takes a lot longer to get to some of these questions. We stick with small talk here. We talk about the weather. We don't necessarily delve into your life story and interrogate you on the first meeting, but that is just what Americans typically are comfortable with and do. So if you're in America and you're inundated with questions, they are just genuine questions from an American wanting to get to know you, and in American culture, they are not overstepping any social boundaries. Now, the fifth thing to keep in mind if you're visiting America as a British person is that visiting different states can be like visiting entirely different countries. While everybody speaks the same language and you'll find chain restaurants and chain stores all around the country, visiting Texas is entirely different than visiting Rhode Island. The cuisine will be different, particularly when I've been looking up some Texas places. There's a lot of Tex-Mex, a lot of Hispanic influence, like I was talking about. You'll find a lot of Mexican food, barbecue. If you're in somewhere like Rhode Island, you'll have an easier time finding things like seafood. And certainly they'll have cultural influences that are more European. So while you might be visiting America, there are 50 states that all can give you an entirely different experience. And this differs for us here in the UK because while Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and England definitely have their differences, everything is so small and compact that you're not going to be able to see a canyon in the same country. You're not going to be able to see like something like the Grand Canyon in the UK at all, but you're not going to be able to see the variety of landscape and just different ways of life in the UK versus in the US. The next thing to keep in mind is that American humor is not dry like British humor. British humor can be very dry and very sarcastic to the point where I have lived here 10 years and occasionally I still miss if somebody's trying to make a joke because it is so dry. The American sense of humor is more in your face. It's more slapstick. It's more obvious that you are joking. So if you are doing something like taking the mick out of someone, they might not realize that that's what you're doing because that is not the sense of humor in America. Obviously, people have their own senses of humor and some people are more sarcastic than others. But if you have a very British dry sense of humor, don't be surprised if you get some strange looks in the US. It doesn't translate all of the time. And the last thing to keep in mind is that Americans in general are warm and genuine and welcoming. And I know a lot of you have commented in my videos in the past that this has been your experience with Americans and visiting America. Obviously, you can have your own opinions on the American government, on the craziness that America often provides the world, but when you visit the States, you will likely find that people are very warm, people are very friendly. And one thing that Americans do as well is they are relatively genuine in offering things to you. So if they invite you to come do something with them or to come over to their house or to join them for dinner, this is not just a polite thing to do that they don't expect you to take them up on. It's usually a very genuine offer. And this, again, differs from here where it takes longer to get to know somebody. It takes a little bit longer to get to that stage where you might meet an American in the checkout line at the grocery store and they could invite you over for dinner and they're being incredibly genuine. They want you there. They want to welcome you into their homes. And this is the good part about America, particularly visiting America. from abroad is you should encounter some very friendly and warm and welcoming people. Okay, so that takes me to the end of this video. I hope you learned something. Maybe you're planning a trip to America. Comment below. Have you ever been to America? Would you like to go? Do you agree with my list? Are there things you'd like to add? I would love to find out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.